No, it's just up to see.
they're okay.
Now, if you can remember where the engine is, come on off the train and sneak around to the back and ring that air bell. Come on down.
Okay, you don't have to. But if you want to, the kids are going to ring the air bell.
Go ring the air bell.
That's okay. I love these wild roses.
Me too. They sell them. I saw them some nursery. Maybe that nursery is talking about.
Oh, yes.
What would you like, Daddy? Daddy, what would you like?
Regular Doritos, applesauce, regular potato chips, barbecue potato chips.
Yeah, we'll take our
You got those pretzel, weird pretzel sprouts?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, but that's a big thing.
Yeah. Potato chips, or you want nacho chips?
They went 0-16 and they threw a parade.
Yeah, so where would you get it?
That was when I was like, all right, that's
Something up
I mean,
here.
if anything,
Good drainage.
Real face.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, they're gonna celebrate that. They're gonna win me over.
I don't even know if we would know what's on
I think they like the sandy.
Yeah,
they were in
sandy
the
soil.
Yeah.
I know.
So,
Oh, Mystique.
is that the
Yeah.
type of people that you get
last year when we made it to the playoffs, it was like.
Okay, here we go. I'll try to point out some things for of interest in the bay. I know that people are more interested in the food trucks and where those are. I'll show you.
Alright, yeah, we just see the boats this way there.
Be remembered, 3 toots means we're backing up.
But look, you can face this way, then you can see the boat even from this side.
And the pin didn't get pulled, so he's taking us with him. Now the bridge that we are visiting here, this steel frame swing bridge, was the original 1840s bridge that would have gone in for the Grand Trunk Railroad to come across the river. That's right, I said river, this is not the ocean. So it would have crossed the Fall River, last leg of its journey of 400 miles to come into Portland. At no time did a narrow gauge railroad cross that bridge. Remember, we've only been here since 1992, and it had to be after the destruction of that bridge. 1984, the bridge was destroyed in an electric fire. Fortunately for the railroad, it was rail to rail. However, in 1989, the harbor master would finally come to the railroad and say, either fix that bridge, because there's a 3.5 mile cove on the other side, and that's where the smaller vessels go when it's going to be storming. So they had to either fix it or take it out of there. And the answer St. Lawrence and Atlantic gave was rip out the rail and not come into Portland anymore. The trucks then took over the contract of freight. This little island that is directly parallel to the train, there's a causeway with a white vehicle that's driving across. That's Mackworth Island. Mackworth was the original summer home of Governor Percival Baxter. When he passed away, he left the island and his home to the state with the understanding it would be used for the deaf community. It's where Baxter School for the Deaf is located, or was located. Now it's the Education Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. There's a blue sign to that effect in Falmouth that shows you where to go out onto the island. There are about 3 or 4 miles of trails out there. Governor Baxter was an avid outdoorsman. When he was in the legislature before becoming governor, he fought tooth and nail to get hundreds of thousands of acres set aside in central Maine called Baxter State Park. Now it's where Mount Katahdin is located. His belief was that future generations needed to have a place to hike, camp, fish, And so he set aside the wilderness property for that. Young kids especially like Mackworth because they can build houses in the roots and rocks. There's quite a little fairy village going on over there. Out on the horizon, you'll see a power plant. That's the only other island in Casco Bay that has road access. All other islands are water access. But obviously, because it's a power plant, we get to get food. Okay, food truck alert. Right at the top of this hill is a park. See all those food trucks up there? Oh yeah. There's also a playground up there. Ever wonder what happened to the city swimming pool when nobody uses it? There it is. 25 cents a day, you can swim right in that parking lot. And we're coming to East End Beach. Now, a little explanation here. I mentioned that these are rivers, not the ocean. We're about 20, well from here we're about 25 miles from the ocean. If you go through Portland, we're about 20 miles. So it's longer, not deeper. These rivers are tidal, however, and at this time of year we have a 14-foot tide. This little sandbar that's just off the coast is actually a ledge. We've got 2 hours left to tide, high tide, and at that point you won't see that little strip of land anymore. You also won't see the little beach that we just passed. We'll have to wait 6 hours before it's all exposed again. So the British first arrived and charted islands in this bay in the 1630s. They charted 365 islands, so we call them the calendars, but we think that they were probably charting ledges as well, because some of them are rather large, and they probably had a different definition of what an island was. It was 500 years ago. There are also 6 forts on the islands as well as on the mainland. We are heavily militarized. And it's fort number 7 that gets the most attention. That island, or that ledge that has the fort built on it in front of Peaks Island is Fort Gorges. Fort Gorges is named for Fernando Gorges. Fernando Gorges was the proprietor of this region. Now, what's a proprietor? Well, his role from England was to send people here to settle, but he sent them here with a mission. Maine has always been a state founded on trees and lumber, and they were looking for Douglas fir trees. Douglas fir has a tendency to bend rather than snap, so they were looking for the Douglas fir in order to be the main mast of King James' naval fleet. Now you can go out to Fort Gorges, it's part of the Parks and Recreation, but you do need your own water transportation. That's this year. Next year, those pilings that were rising out of the water as we were leaving, that's all that remain of 9 docks that's once stood there. But those 3 will be removed at the end of this year in order to make way for the boat launch that the Friends of the Fort will be building next year. And we do have 2 schooners that are here for the summer, and it's one at full fleet right now. There are also 2 antique schooners that are here from Boston Harbor. They have a black hull. Not sure why they came to Portland rather than staying in Boston, but there's one at store right now. So one out here with a black hull and one trapezoidal sail. The second one is still in Burnsville. They are giving rides in order to raise money for restoration. There are 2 lighthouses directly across from the train right now. smaller of the two is Bug Light. Showed the opening to the port. Bug Light sits in Bug Light Park. Bug Light Park commemorates the building of the Liberty ships during World War II. Hi, Jim. There were over 300 ships built for England and over 100 for the United States here in Portland's Harbor. Further out in the water is the Spring Point Harbor Light. That's actually a signal light. It doesn't rotate. It just shows ship captains where the ledge is that claimed 7 shipwrecks before the state was allowed, well, before the city was allowed to put the lighthouse there. And this building that's to our rear here is the original building was pushed back. This larger one was. The larger one is the Sunlight Insurance Company. This smaller one was actually part of the 12 historic buildings that made up Portland Complex. They took 3D images of that building, dismantled the whole thing, washed all the bricks, palleted them, and now they're facing that building. It has to look exactly the way that it did because it's a historic building. So they have to make it look the way that it did when it was pushed back. We always called it Building 7. It's where our water supply was for the steam engines. The interesting part about that is the first floor is a cafe. The next 2 floors are 7-figure condos. Hope they like trains, because we're here till 2079. And thank you for riding with us today. Thank you for bearing with this wonderful sound system. We'll figure it out by tomorrow. If anybody is a sound engineer, I'm figuring the kids are. And if you want to try this out, come and fix it. I've got directions. It comes with pictures.
Absolute late.